the Washington, D.C. area. There are about 3,000 employees there. It's a mixture of civil servants and contractor workforce. I've spent almost my entire sort of professional career there, 20 plus years, and have a very fortunate of being sort of the non-traditional aerospace engineer. I've worked as an attitude control specialist, so I maintain the orientation of spacecrafts, and then also been an instrument manager, worked at headquarters on policy. And as instrument manager, I really get to do the cutting edge science. So I take the science of our 4 science disciplines, which we focus on: astrophysics, heliophysics, earth science, and the last one I'm gonna go up blank, right? Planetary science. And so I have the ability to lead teams to do cutting edge innovation of our instruments, and that's the real strength of our Guided Space Flight Center. Most recently, I served as the deputy to the chief technologist of our applied engineering. Why don't you guys have a seat as I talk? Of the applied engineering and technology division. And so then I started to move into things like nanotechnology, advanced manufacturing, CubeSats and small sats development. Meena, come on over. You guys, Paul? Yeah, they're gonna get mic'd up. And then I'll introduce you guys as I sort of talk. And in doing so, I have the ability now to sort of work and partner with everybody and to be outside the walls of Goddard, more so than just confined to our project mission. My last instrument was a $500 million instrument. It's got similar sort of, it uses similar techniques that I saw in your own labs here. In particular of how you're manipulating atoms and how they look at the contour topology. So we use laser instruments, a laser altimeter in this instant that focuses down to the ground, quickly bounces back up. You measure that distance through the time that it takes for the photon beam to arrive back to the detector. In that way, we're able to create the topographical maps of, say, the moon. In this case, it's looking at the ice sheets, and so we are very concerned about global warming, and this is our opportunity to measure the ice sheets and the surfaces and the depths of the ice and sea ice. So I think is Dulce here? Oh, behind me, okay, great. Okay. So I always have to attempt global challenges, and that's really what we're talking about here with this panel. The panel is talking about solving 21st century problems through invention. And we'd like to demonstrate with the discussion our panel's ability in solving global problems. So I'm going to introduce the panel, and then I'm going to let them give you a few moments to talk about what they do. What I currently do is now I'm the project manager. I actually have a deputy now. A project manager for our small business and innovative research contracts, and then our what we call transfer of information and development of new devices and commercialization in the private sector. And so with that said, I'm trying to really help our economic growth of this country, which is very important to me. And then we have a university component, and I've been an adjunct professor and board of trustees member, and as well as the chair of a public charter middle school of math and science. So education is a real important aspect to the job that we do at NASA as well. So let me start off with my far right. We have Paul Sorin. And so Paul, why don't you just quickly go through and give a little bit, Sorin on the far end. Then we have Paul, Meena, and Dulce. And then I'll let them pretty much introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about the work that we do, and then we'll start with addressing a few questions that we think will sort of help to answer this question that we've posed. So.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Sorin. I'm an engineer, and I started a company focusing on solving a problem that we discovered 7 years ago in India. I'm not from India. I'm just an engineer that just saw this problem, and I wanted to solve it, and we started developing various technologies, it's a long story, basically, but I won't go into all the details. It's a long journey to develop the solution to this. Briefly, the problem that we discovered was a problem in the dairy industry in India. India is the largest producer and consumer of milk in the world. And a lot of that milk is collected from very small, marginal farmers that produce 1, 2, or 5 liters of milk per day. All that milk gets accumulated at these collection centers, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of liters of milk per day that has to be transported to a processing center. Along the way, a lot of that milk spoils. And so this was a problem that was posed to us by one of the dairies in India, and we decided to try to solve it. The root cause of that problem is the lack of reliable electricity in villages throughout India. So with that insight, we started looking at various technologies. We tried a number of things like solar power. Many things didn't work, but finally we struck up an idea that did work. And we now have a commercial product that's being sold in India. 2 years ago, I moved to India to ramp up manufacturing. And I guess part of the conversation here, we'll talk more about that journey.
Okay, my name is Paul Stamets. A little bit of my background, I grew up in a small town in Ohio. I was the youngest son of a family of 5 other kids. And I had a large laboratory complex in the basement where my brothers did, but they wouldn't let me work in the lab. But my brother went off to Yale, my other brother went off to Cornell, and they left a complete laboratory in the basement that I had available. So it was a dream come true, and I always dreamt about living in the country, having my own laboratory complex. That dream has come true. I have a company at fungi.com and fungi.net. I registered those names myself for $25. And I now have 68 employees. And today is debt-free day. For the first time in my life, I no longer have any debts. I drove 20,000 kilos of mycelium per week, sometimes more than that. I'm a mycologist. My father said you'd never make any money growing mushrooms. I followed my path and my passion. I have over 500 strains in culture. I did a lot of work in the old growth forest. I'll go through this very quickly, but I published 2 articles in a peer-reviewed journals on the novel antimicrobial and novel antiviral properties of mushrooms. Mushrooms, unfortunately, from the scientific community, it suffers from mycophobia. How can mushrooms be a serious subject? I surveyed the scientific literature, published these papers, a whopping 2 pages long, so that very little research was done on the antimicrobial, antiviral properties of mushrooms. That got published, 9/11 occurred, the BioShield Biodefense Program contacted me because of those articles. We submitted 700 samples to the BioShield Biodefense Program, hit some huge home runs. You can Google my name and smallpox and NPR, there's a vetted press release. And then we were able to find basically a new reservoir of antiviral molecules resident in these wood decomposing fungi. Well, just recently, the NIH then recontacted us at virology because of Ebola, etc. We supplied natural extracts, but they wouldn't take the natural extracts. They didn't want to do bioorganic fractionation. That was our job. They wanted pure structures. So I'm a victim, as many of you are, of Google Scholar alerts. I get way too many articles a week that I have to read. And so I narrowed the field down of thousands of molecules. I mean, 1 out of a million molecules might have antiviral activities. And I then basically focused on 20 structures, as they're known. And then 10 of those structures hit huge home runs. Better than are the structures that I chose by circumstance, intuition, who knows, beat the pure pharmaceutical controls, ribavirin, cidofovir, and acyclovir, with novel molecules heretofore never been studied. Well, this is very interesting because the molecules also were very powerful. The compounds, the natural extracts were very powerful against bird flu, pox viruses, herpes simplex 1 and 2, varicella zoster, and other viruses. Then, I'm a nature person. I go in the woods a lot. And I just want to emphasize to all of you here, all this technology is wonderful, but it's meaningless in the context that we're undergoing 6X, the 6th greatest extinction on this planet ever known. We're losing more than 30,000 species per year and a genome of 8.3 million species. In 100 years, we'll unravel and lose more than 1/3 of the biodiversity that's given us life on this planet. I believe biodiversity is biosecurity. And you can go out in the soil right here, take a sample. There'll be more than 1 million microbes per gram, the majority of which cannot even be grown. I am very much focused on the microbiome, the mycobiome, with the mycelium selects out bacteria and other organisms that help the biosphere, and they're the foundation of the food web. The loss of biodiversity in the food web is a global threat to us all. And so my work has been focusing on things that have to be achievable. I believe that to be ecologically rational, economically sustainable, and scalable or practicable. Those are my 3 covenants. And a weird twist of fate is that I think I found the solution to colony collapse disorder with bees. We've submitted now these samples to top researchers, and we have hit a huge home run. And the words of Dr. Steve Shepard, who's the chief of entomology at Western State University, in 39 years of research, I've never seen anything like this. I may have discovered something that is hiding in plain sight. I call it hips, hiding in plain sight. You know, we're hipsters. And what I think I found, which is just remarkably simple, but so powerful, is that bees go to rotted logs because of mycelium. We all